Hey y'all, it's Jessica from Sloppy Swatches. Today I have a look at the Lakeside collection that's available starting today from Cupcake Polish. This collection was sent to me for review, and it's a collection of 3 beautiful new shimmers that are new to the Cupcake line, as well as 3 new gorgeous glitters. This collection was inspired by the Lakeside during the fall, and I'll go ahead and get right into the swatches. So first up is Here or There, and this is described as a light brown cream-based linear holographic polish with iridescent glitters. This did strike me a little bit mauve or maybe rosy toned. It is definitely a gorgeous and grown-up looking nude, even with all of that glitter. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Here or There swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. I did find the glitters to be a little bit more on the thicker side in terms of formula. That's really going to help keep all of those iridescent glitters nice and suspended into the formula. So one coat made for a nice base. It was just a tiny bit sheer, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how it builds up for me with a second coat. This second coat does bring it completely opaque, and I do recommend using a coat of your favorite top coat. These do dry down maybe a tiny bit textured and a little bit dull. So here's a look at that completed mani. Had 2 coats before, glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting, and then here's a view from a different angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. This is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So next up is Float Your Boat, and this is one of my top picks. This polish is described as a gray cream-based linear holographic polish with iridescent glitters. So I am in love with the iridescent glitters, not only in the super holographic base, but also in that deeper gray tone. They really seem to pop. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Float Your Boat swatched on my natural nail. So much like Here or There, this does have a little bit of a thicker formula, but definitely helps with application. You don't have to worry about those glitters or fishing them out or getting them spread out on the nail. I did notice that they tended to drip down the stem a little bit, so that's something that you may want to be mindful for. It did help me get a nice thick coat there for that first coat. It was really close to being completely opaque, but the second coat definitely gets it there. So I did notice that I needed to cap the tip on several nails just to make sure all of those larger iridescent glitters are nice and pushed back on the nail. Again, this is another one that I would recommend using your favorite glossy top coat. So here's a look at that completed mani at 2 coats, and then here it is once more from a different angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. This is my final swatch photo in that same direct sunlight. So next up is Keeping It Real, and this is another top pick of mine. This is in the new shimmer formula that's completely new from Cupcake Polish. This is described as a moss green cream polish with pink to copper to green to gold multi-chrome shimmer. And just as vibrant as it is in the bottle there, that's exactly how it shifts on the nail. So there's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Keeping It Real swatched on my natural nail. So these do start out a little bit sheer. This first coat on went on super smooth, really easy to work with, not too thick or too thin, just quite sheer. This is one that you're going to have to build up a little bit. All of that sheerness of the base is really going to help that shimmer build up on itself. So here's a quick look at that second coat. This is a little bit of a thicker second coat, and it brings it right to the edge of being completely opaque. If you maybe want to go in a little bit thicker for your first, you could get away with 2 coats of this. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry down. It did kind of continue to drip down the stem, so again, that's something you want to watch out for. But I'm going to go ahead and build it up with a third and final coat, just a nice quick thin third coat to get closer to my sidewalls, and it does bring this polish completely opaque. I did notice that I needed to be just a tiny bit mindful of my brush strokes so that it doesn't show up in the shimmer too much. Really easy to do. Just make sure you make nice long even strokes. So here's a look at that completed mani at 3 coats before, glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. Here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat, and this is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So next up is Don't Be Shallow, and this polish is described as a cornflower blue cream polish with pink to copper to green to gold multi-chrome shimmer. I did find that the shimmer was maybe a little bit more subtle in the base. I do feel like the base is a bit more pigmented and bright, so that may be why. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Don't Be Shallow swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first coat. This one went on again super smooth. I didn't have any issues with staining or anything like that. It is a little bit sheer, a little bit jelly, so I'll go ahead and complete this coat, let it dry, and then show you how it built up for me with a second coat. So here's a quick look at that second coat. I did go in maybe for a little bit of a thicker second coat, but it did push this polish right to the edge of being completely opaque. I was pretty happy with the finish here, so I am going to stop at 2, but if you wanted to, you could totally go in for a third coat. So here's a look at that completed mani at 3 coats before, glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. It is still a little bit wet here in this image, so here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. This is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So next up is All Tied Up, and this is another of my top picks. I know that's 3 out of 6, but they really are beautiful. So this one is described as a mauve cream polish with magenta to purple to blue to green to teal multi-chrome shimmer. So you can see they're shifting in the bottle. I got a lot of that blue or teal, super beautiful. There's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how All Tied Up swatched on my natural nail. Just like the other shimmers, this one does start out a little bit sheer. I did end up going for a bit of a thicker first coat here. I kind of had to make sure that my stem was brushed off and go back in and even it up. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with a second coat. So here's a look at that second coat. Just a nice normal second coat does bring this polish completely opaque with no issues at all. Again, I just wanted to be a little bit mindful of those brush strokes, especially as they show up in the shimmer. You can kind of see as I manipulate it there. They do mellow out a little bit, but it's something that you want to be mindful of. So here's a look at that completed mani at 2 coats before, glossy top coat underneath my artificial lighting. And here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. So this is my final swatch photo at an angle under that same direct sunlight. So the 6th polish of this collection is Sure Thing, and this is described as a lavender cream-based holographic polish with iridescent glitter. So this is another of those gorgeous glitter finishes. You can see how well those iridescent glitters pop on this purple base. Super gorgeous. Here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Sure Thing swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. And these go on super smooth, no issues. You don't get any grit from those flakies or glitters at all. It is just a tiny bit sheer, so I'm going to go ahead and let that dry down and then show you how it built up with a second coat. So here's a quick look at my second and final coat. I did just go in for a nice and normal second coat, and it did bring this polish completely opaque. You can see some of those opalescent or iridescent glitters kind of hanging on to the end. Just cap the tip and those go right where they're supposed to. So here's a look at that completed mani at 2 coats before, glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. Here's a view from another angle in direct sunlight with a glossy top coat. This is my final swatch photo at an angle in that same direct sunlight. So that does wrap up my swatch and review of the Lakeside collection. These are going to be available super soon on the Cupcake Polish website. I'll link them down below. If you're interested in seeing any more photos of any of the polishes shown here, I do have those available on my blog at sloppyswatches.com, or you can also follow me on Instagram at sloppyswatches. So thanks so much for watching, guys. See you next time.